All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Eric Howard, one of the directors at Hive Volleyball, and we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about some fundamental skills. And today we're talking about passing and serving. We're going to go over some of the fundamental keys of what we teach in our gym, and give you guys a little something to think about at home. Okay. So first, what we're going to talk about is passing. So passing is one of the most important fundamental skills in volleyball. And we're going to talk about some principles, then we're going to talk about some keys. Okay, so our first principle is one of my favorite principles, which is just simple over complex. Simple movement is easier to repeat over and over and over complex movement. And so we're going to talk about clean and simple movement when we pass. Ball nose angles. So one of the things I like to think about this principle is, it's a joke. Balls are like future husbands. They will only do what you tell them to. So think about that. Ball nose angles. Whatever your platform, your passing surface is saying, that's what the ball's going to do. So ball nose angles. And then the other thing, a really important principle, is passing it high and preferably off the net. So for our younger kids, just learning volleyball, we really want to focus on simple over complex, ball nose angles, and then pass high and off the net. So I think if we do those will be pretty good. Okay, we've covered our principles, and before we get into our keys, we got to make sure that we're ready to pass. And so we're going to talk about ready position. So first, we want to make sure that we're always athletic when we play volleyball. And so putting our feet slightly wider than what our shoulders are, bending our legs, kind of keeping our shoulders up a little bit, and hands down and palms out. That's going to be our ready position. And so we want to make sure that, again, we're able to move right or left, forward or backwards. And so if we look at our players right now, Kenna and Briley, their feet are really, really solid. I feel like they're in a pretty athletic position. They're not stuck in one spot. If they needed to move really fast and dynamic, I feel they can move in any direction. So again, we want to make sure that our hands are down, keeping it nice and simple rather than up high or out. We want them to be right here, and then we can get into our first key. Okay, we're going to get into our keys, and so our first key is going to be wrist and hands. Okay, so it's going to be simply kind of targeted towards our wrist and hands and how we're going to form our passing platform. So we're going to put one right over the other, making sure that our fingers are not lopsided or kind of hanging out or kind of looking complex. We want to make sure that our hands are nice and flush with our fingers, and then we're going to roll our thumbs over, putting our wrist together. So it's going to look a little bit like this. Let's bring in our two players. We've got Kenna from our 15 black and Briley from our 12 gold team. And so a lot of the times when we see young players put a platform together, they'll do all sorts of creative things that I think just make sense in their mind. And so they'll cross their fingers, they'll make a fist, and they'll hold it. We really want this to be clean. So if we can kind of show Kenna's and show Briley's. So what we want to make sure is that when we're putting this together, we want it as symmetric as possible. So if we were to cut a line down the middle, that both sides look the exact same. So we've got some pretty good platforms right here. And so something that you can check with your own kid at home is making sure that their hands are looking pretty. So if they look clean, chances are it's good. If they're looking a little off, chances are that we need to do some work on there. So again, just getting back to fingers, one hand over the other, and then folding your thumbs in, putting those wrists together. So these are pretty good. So what we're going to do is we'll go from this key, and we'll do some toss, pass, catch between our two players, and then we'll kind of watch that. Okay, so our first drill we're going to do is TPC. We call it a toss, pass, catch, and this is something, when I'm doing camps all over the country for Gold Medal Square, this is something that we cover the very, very first day, and it's also very important in our gym. And so What I want to make sure before we even get to a toss is that one, we're in a nice athletic stance, a great ready position. Hands are down and she's ready to move. So she's ready to move and ready to have a platform to go. So when we're doing this drill, toss, pass, catch, the only thing I care about my player is that her wrist and hands are pretty good. I don't care about straight and simple right now or any more advanced keys. All I really want to do is focus is on her wrist and hands. And let's have Briley just take off her sweatshirt, okay? I like your angles, dog. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of this. And so what I want to see is, again, I'm really focusing on wrist and hands. And so if Briley doesn't have her wrist and hands together, I don't want Kenna to toss the ball, or I don't want anybody to toss the ball to her. So first I would go wrist and hands. Let's see it together. Pretty good, I like it. I would maybe adjust a little bit, getting that hand, that finger behind her platform, and then good wrist and hands. Pretty nice job. That looks good. That looks really good. Okay, and then we'll have a toss. I'm only gonna look at wrist and hands and make sure that they stay together. I don't care about feet, I don't care about platform, I only care about this right now, okay? Here we go. Nice good toss, pretty good wrist and hands. Now Briley, if you could do something funky for me, okay? If you can just do something weird, okay? All right, here we go. So first, oh nice. Now, I don't care about anything other than her hands broke apart. So when she came up high, her hands broke apart and then came up together. I don't even care that she came up high. All I care about is that when she passes, her wrist and hands stay together, okay? So let's see it, ready position, wrist and hands together. There we go, nice and solid, okay? That's my only focus is just here. As soon as we've got this down pretty good, maybe do 10, and then switch if you have multiple players, or just do 10 and then move on, okay? But make sure it's nice and solid. Let's see it again, nice and toss. Pretty good. So what I would do is I see that this is a little lower than this, and so I'm really gonna focus on being meticulous with this platform, that this stays together, okay? Let's do one more rep, nice ready position. Keep that platform nice and solid. Yeah, dog, I like it. Pretty, okay? Here we go. Very good. All right, our next key that we're gonna talk about is straight and simple. Has one of our principles, the wording in there. So think about this. We've covered our wrist and hands, and don't move on to this next key until wrist and hands are pretty good. And at this time, you should have already done a drill, some toss, pass, catch, and stay there as long as you need to make sure wrist and hands are pretty good. And so now we're gonna talk about straight and simple. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our platform down here, making sure that we have one straight platform. You'll see nice good wrist and hands. Make sure you're checking that before we go into our next drill. And then it's just, we really want one process. We want to start low, and then when we pass, we want to do one motion to about where our shoulders are. We don't want to go too far above, and we don't want any kind of swaying back and forth. It's just platforms together, pretty good wrist and hands, and then just pushing our pass and then trying to hold that play, okay? So again, if we're gonna check straight and simple here, it's gonna be starting a little bit low, and they're just gonna go from this position to this position while passing, and that is our straight and simple. So a lot of the times what we'll see, and what I want you guys at home to be watching your young kids, is when they're doing this, or they're doing any extra movement. So that goes back to our simple over complex principle. So are they doing any breakage of the platform? Are they doing any bobbing? Are they doing any extra movement, or kind of being wild with your platform? It's as simple as seeing the pass or the platform just do one motion from starting position to end position, which is our A to B, and nothing in between. Okay, so now we're moving on. And now our focus is going to be key number 2, which again is going to be straight and simple. So we're making sure that our platform starts down at A, and then our platform finishes at B, and we don't do anything that breaks. Okay, we've moved on from toss, pass, catch, and now we're going to do a back and forth. Okay, so we're going to pass continuously between our 2 players. If you have a sister or a brother, or a mom or a dad, this is a really good time that you can start kind of getting with your athlete and trying to pass back and forth. It's going to be really easy in this moment to to start moving on to the result. So thinking about feet, thinking about the pass being perfect. Now, we really want to maintain a focus of wrist and hands, nice and solid, which is our key number 1, and then straight and simple, which is moving on to key number 2. So as we're doing this, we want to create at least 10 to 12 feet back, and we want to make sure that the pass is going to be kind of high. So let's watch our athletes right now. Say it again. Yep. You guys are going to do a little funky. We're going to watch our athletes right now, and we're going to let them pass, and we're just going to watch them, and we're going to talk a little bit about some feedback. Okay, so if you have the ability to go back and look, I asked our players to do some funky stuff, and passing, I think, was pretty controlled. I think that they could go on until I told them to stop. But what they were doing with their arms were a little bit of a sway, a little bit of a break, and then a little bit of a bend, right? And so that's the stuff that we want to see. That's the stuff that we want to see and then give some feedback to try to get back to some of those principles that we talked about in simple movement. So we want to make sure that we're just from A to B, keeping this platform really straight, and keeping our wrists and hands together and not letting it break apart, okay? So we're gonna go again, we're gonna do some toss back and forth, okay, Bryce? And this time, I want you guys to really focus on just wrist and hands being nice and solid together. And then just one motion from here, and then back to here, okay? All right, so let's see this, okay? Nice and high tosses, nice and high passes. 3, I like it. So wrist and hands are staying together. There's just one move from here. Nice, and let's have you guys try to hold your move a little bit. So when you pass, let's give a little bit of a pause. That is awesome. Now again, I'm not talking about anything with feet. I'm not talking about anything with balance right now. The only thing I want to see is wrist and hands are staying nice and solid. And then we're talking about key, which is straight and simple. So those are the only 2 things that I'm focusing on, nothing else. Has nothing to do with continuous passing. If we can only get 1 rep, I still want the focus to be those 2 keys, wrist and hands and straight and simple. So when it's done with nice movements, I feel like we can go on forever. So again, let's kind of just watch these platforms. We're starting low, wrist and hands, straight and simple,